The weekly sermons of 45th Street Baptist Church are now available as a podcast through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts.
you know how powerful this is? Do you know what it means in your life? Or maybe I should ask the question, does it mean anything in your life? Until you learn how to study it, see what God is saying to you, you'll never really be able to fulfill your purpose. Come on and join us. Join us for 45 minutes of purpose here at 45th Street Baptist Church. I guarantee you, you'll come out thinking differently. And my prayer is, somewhere along the line, you'll find the purpose that God has for you. Come on in and join us.
Welcome to 45 Minutes of Purpose with Reverend Andra D. Sparks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alvin Langham, and welcome to 45 Minutes of Purpose, the Takeover Edition, first of the 3 series Takeover Edition. Why are we taking over? Because we are celebrating Pastor Andra Sparks' 19th anniversary here at 45th Street Baptist Church. So this is part of a month-long celebration for him. And I just like to say I'm feel privileged to do this. Although it's a daunting task, he's a great preacher and teacher. And I just hope that you all get as much out of this week as I get all the other weeks when he's teaching. So very excited about this opportunity. So the title is, we are doing a journey of a lifetime. We're studying the entire book of the Bible and a year or a little bit over a year because we don't have Bible study. But this week's lesson is we're focusing on the book of Joshua. Just to give you a quick recap, starting in Exodus. Moses goes to Pharaoh, tells Pharaoh, let my people go. Pharaoh is resistant. God sends 10 plagues, and Pharaoh does let the people go. And thus, we start the journey to the promised land. What should be relatively a short trip ends up being 40 years. And, I say relatively because, they're walking, not in a horse in the car or anything like that. So it turns into a 40-year journey. And the reason for this simply because of disobedience and a lack of faith. So this is their, you want to call it punishment for not having faith and not being obedient to God. So as a result of this, the people are not, or many of the people, most of the people are not going to be allowed to see the promised land. As a matter of fact, only 2 people are allowed, the two spies that were sent to scope out the promised land, Caleb and Joshua. And Moses doesn't even get to see to go into the promised land. I said he doesn't get into the promised land. And that is part of his consequence of punishment, whatever term you want to use. But even he does not go. So all the children of the original people who left Egypt, they have to die. And it is the next generation, they are the ones that will be allowed to enter the promise. And along with Joshua and Caleb. So that's where we pick up here in lesson 7 of the book of Joshua. The original people that left died. At this point, Moses is going to die. But before he does, he names Joshua as his successor. And I got to tell you, that had to be a daunting task for him to undertake. To succeed Moses, but that is what happens. And from the get-go, from the jump, he has a serious task in front of him for the people of Israel. Picking up in our line, section 1, they've got to cross the Jordan River. And like I said, it had to be a daunting task to cross the river. But, God gives him reassurance. And how does he give him this reassurance? Well, he promises him 3 things. Just as he promised Moses, God always keeps his word. First thing is that Israel will receive every place on which their feet were tread. Okay. A second promise is that God will not fail or forsake them. And the third promise is that God will be with them wherever they go. So God, always keeps his word. He keeps his promise. No matter how daunting the task may be or if you're faithful, hey, you got to have reassurance with that and do what he says. That's what his expectation is for you to do what he asks you to do. Okay. So, we're going to pick up here. And what do? They just don't cross the river. As you know, they have to go take the promise. They can't. But they just don't do it. Just as just as Caleb and Joshua were spies, Joshua tasked 2 people to do the same thing. But instead of sending 12, he only sends 2. And as you may recall, originally he and Caleb were among 12 spies that were sent, but they were the only 2 that brought back promising words. As a matter of fact, it was in Numbers chapter 14, verse 7. And they spake unto all the company of the children of Israel, saying, the land which we passed through to search it is exceeding good land. So they were the only 2 spies that gave promising words. So in this situation here, Joshua tasked 2 men to go spy the promised land. So they go to Jericho. And when they go to Jericho, I'm going to use the phrase, they run into Rahab. And so when they do this, she helps them. She hides them, as a matter of fact. But the king gets word of this. I'm going to use the word summons Rahab and say, hey, I've heard you got 2 men with you that have come here to spy this land and take it. Where are they? And she says, I don't have them. Hey, they went to the gate. They got out of the gate at dusk. But I believe that if you go after them right now, you might catch them. And I just kind of facetious, I kind of thought that, you might think of Flintstones, they got spinning feet or whatnot, you hear the drums in the background, they proceed to try to get the 2 spies. But they go in vain because the spies are still in the land. As a matter of fact, what Rahab does, she hides them in her room. Okay, so she does that. And when she goes to speak to them, she shows it, it's outline references here, her faith in saying that she tells the spies she believes God has given them the land, and she believes all that she has heard of God's miracle. Well, what happens is that the people of Jericho, they've heard about what has happened previously with the children. They've heard of the lands that they conquered. They heard about the battles that they fought, and they're scared. And she tells them that they're scared. But in this conversation, they discuss, well, what happens? Rahab understands that the land is going to be taken. She tells them that, and she unselfishly asks the 2 spies to say, hey, I'm helping you. I'm asking you to spare my family. And that is what they promised. They promised to spare her family. But in telling her this, they say, hey, when we come, you didn't have your folks in the house and they didn't stay in the house with you. Because anybody that steps outside, we can't, they're going to die. And it's not going to be our fault, because we're telling you to keep your people inside. And Rahab understands. So as you can imagine, that when somebody's coming to take the land, there's going to be total chaos. They're talking about killing everybody, everything. How are they going to spare Rahab and her family? Well, the way they do this is they got to have a sign. And the sign is a scarlet thread or rope. As a matter of fact, it's the same rope that she uses to help lower them from her roof so that they can escape Jericho. And she tells them that, hey, what you need to do is you need to go to the mountains, hang out, I think, for 3 days. And after that, when it's safe, then and that's what they do. So they go back to the camp. They talk to Joshua and they tell Joshua what they've seen. And they get ready for the siege. So just going along with more of the outline, In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 31, we are told why Rahab the harlot does not perish with the rest of Jericho. And it's simply because of her faith. And that's one of the few references of her in the New Testament. Also, another reference, they talk about her lineage. God's grace is greater than one can ever expect. This is certainly true in the life of Rahab. So what do we discover in Matthew chapter 1, verse 5? We discover her lineage and her genealogy in relation to Jesus Christ in that chapter and verse. And as a matter of fact, the spelling is different when I did the research. It has a C in her name. I almost got confused, but they are referencing Rahab in that section. So we move on to chapters 3 to 5, and we go back to this first task that seems insurmountable. They got to cross the River Jordan. And I apologize if I got this incorrectly, but in my research, I want to know, why is this a daunting task? When you think of it crossing in a river, that's got to be, serious business. And things change over time. So according to, my current research, the River Jordan is approximately 125 miles long. It's approximately at different points, 40 to 200 feet deep. 50 to 200 feet deep. So that is, you're thinking, even at the most shallow part, 50 feet deep, that's a pretty serious thing. God, obviously it's going to and going to follow along with our outline. It says here, what sign does God give to show that Joshua, he is going to lead the people to the promised land? Well, he divided the River Jordan, but only when the priests or leaders of them step into the edge of the water. And so that references what has to happen here. If you thought that the Levite priests, they were done in Leviticus, I got to tell you, they come back. And they, if I want to call them central characters in this portion of the story, they are, because they lead using the Ark of the Covenant. They're in the middle of it, for which they divide, the waters are divided as they step into it. First they're on the edge, but they step into the water divide. And the people are allowed to go across. And it is after they safely make it that, just like with the vision of the Red Sea, the River Jordan goes back into its normal state. So along with this, what it says, memorial crossing themselves in this section. 2 piles of stones are built, one by 12 chosen men on the bank of the river, 3 and 12 before 1 through 8, and the other by Joshua in the midst of. So that's and it said that those stones are still here today. So that is the memorial that is set in place for this. Chapter 5, dealing with the mark of the covenant. As soon as the Israelites are safe on the other side of Jordan, God's commanded them to receive the mark of the covenant. Circumcision. So basically what is happening is, because all of the original children of Israel were circumcised, this new generation, they were not. So they had to be circumcised in order, at this point, in order to carry out, I won't say the mission, but their path at this point. They have to be circumcised, and after doing this, they have to wait to be healed before they actually commence with the journey. So, chapter 6, dealing with the conquering of Jericho. After they made it to the other side of River Jordan, well, how did they take it? They spied. There's a wall, and according to our outline here, the wall is, approximately, the inner wall is 12 feet thick, and the outer wall is 60 feet, and approximately 30 feet high. So that's a massive structure. Well, how do they take care of this wall? Well, you may know or may recall, what happens is they are told, the army is told to march around the wall one time for 6 days. But in doing this, they are to remain silent. The instructions are to walk around that wall once for 6 days, and that's it. But on the seventh day, they'll walk around it 7 times, and when given the command to shout, and they follow these instructions, and the wall falls. And when it does, they are, they understand what their mission is at that time, to go and destroy everybody and everything except for Rahab, and which they know the sign there is the scarlet thread, saying that she more than from her. So they do this, they are successful, but that they got more conquering to do. This is just the first part. They take Jericho, and as we go along farther into the book, they reference more of the battles. But before they go along to take the various sections of Canaan, they have defeat. And the reason they have this defeat is that they fall into the same plight as their ancestors, disobedience. Achan, they are given the command earlier to take some of the spoils, for lack of a better term, but they are not to keep anything. But Achan disobeys this. In doing this, he takes 3 things: expensive garments, silver, and a wedge of gold. And because of this, God is extremely angry. And as a result of this, they, as they try to take the city of I believe it's out for now, they suffer defeat. So AI, yes, AI, they defeat, and simply because they disobey God's word. And some people, there's a saying 1 or 2 bad apples just for that's what happens. They suffer defeat because of disobedience. So as we move along, chapters 9 through 12, as discussed in outline, they talk about victory that they have in the Israelites' promised land. But what part of the promised land do they capture? Well, first they capture the middle, and you know that because they get Jericho first. All right, so they get Jericho, they get AI. Eventually, they get it. Initially, they saw it. Eventually, they do conquer. So after conquering the middle section, you've got the north and the south, and the next part of this is that they want to conquer the south. Well, but before that happens, 5 kings in the southern region, they hear about what has happened to Jericho and Ai. So what they do is that they collaborate. They say, hey, look, these people, they've come in, they're taking the middle section, and I believe we're next. So they collaborate, and they actually go on the offensive. But when they go on the offensive, at this point, they're going to suffer handle. And thus the southern region is taken, which includes Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and so they capture the southern region. And what is left, well, the northern region is left as well. So when they capture the southern region, if you'd like to reference that, that's reference chapter 12 of Joshua. And when they get the north, that's referenced in chapter 11 so what is well, how do they do this? It's reference, the outline reference. Well, they simply use a common military strategy, and you've heard the term afraid. So they that is the military strategy that they use in order to capture. So what is left? Well, they're going to divide the land. How do they do? So what they do, receive parents of cities and pastures, so that the priests were scattered throughout the land. As it says in this section, the division of the territory of Canaan west of Jordan, the Jordan River, is made among the remaining 9.5 tribes. The Levites receive no tribal inheritance for except so that's the cities and pastures, so that the priests are scattered. This plan scatters the leaders of Israel's faith out among the tribes where they can better serve the people. So you may ask, well, as outlined verses, what about the inheritance of the 2 tribes? Well, this goes back to previous books in Numbers, where the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half of Manasseh, they stayed on the east side of Jordan as free. So that was the agreement that was made with Moses back in Numbers, and so that is held true at this point. So, we're near the end of the book, chapters 23 and 24. They bring us to the end of Joshua's life, and something I forgot to reference earlier is that when Joshua is named Moses' successor, a lot of times when you think of a successor or a mentee, when they take over, they're relatively young or they're middle age. But he is 85 years old, just as Moses was 80 when he was tasked to lead the children of Israel. So, by our standards, he's not a young man. He's 85 years old, and when he began his task. And similar to Moses, I think Moses died at age 120. Joshua is 110 when he dies. And he calls a meeting of all the leaders of the people as outlined, references, their address. And the main focus of this speech is, he's warning them against idolatry. The pagan worship of Canaanites includes immoral practices, and later history of Israel shows that Israelites take on some of these evil practices, which God on them as a so that that you may reference or you may remember that the similar the first generation did something very similar as far as making their own God. So we are at the end of Joshua's life, and the outline references chapter 24, verse 15, where he tells the people to choose between the Lord and the God of Canaan. And he says famously, and you know this, but as for me and my house, we will serve. All right, and the meeting closes covenant between the people of Joshua, in which people signed the promise to serve God. The God is chapter 20, Joshua chapter 24, 16. When this meeting concludes, Joshua dies in chapter 20, verse 20. So, fascinating lesson. I actually went through it a lot quicker than I expected, but hopefully,
Keep going too fast.
you got. That's why I said I'm messing my way going too quick. Hopefully, you've got.
Go for that again.
Sorry about that.
You know what I'm saying?
I have a question.
Yes,
I missed, what part of the promised land does Joshua capture? He captures first the middle,
yes,
okay, which is Jericho and Ai,
yes.
Okay.
Includes Jericho and Ai,
okay? And then the second, the southern region,
the southern region,
okay,
which includes Jerusalem, Bethlehem, and Hebrew.
Well, why do you think the story of Achan was included in, in the lead up to taking?
Because God wants to teach or send a message that you have to obey. And like I said, they failed to fight of the previous generations, which they were disobedient and they showed a lack of faith. So he had to show them swiftly, instead of president, like a better phrase, the term, that you obey what he says, and that's it. There's no deviation from that. And because he does not obey because he takes some things that he should not have taken, they suffer.
But I mean, it was just a little something out of all that stuff.
Well, obedience is obedience, and he said not to keep it. So
So God was absolutely.
absolutely, he was absolutely.
absolutely.
Because I think sometimes we believe God knows my heart. You know what we say?
I've heard several people that's not what he expects. He expects you to obey his word, and that's it. That's an excellent point.
But what was the reason for destroying? I mean, it was perfectly good gold, perfectly good silver. What's the reason to destroy that when they can use it?
I'm going to say that because they don't want any remnants of what's left. They want to build everything new. They don't want any of the past left there. You know, this is their land that God promises to them, and they don't want anything of the past.
Also, go ahead.
So God told them to destroy everything.
Yes, yes.
So he's not gold, silver, platinum, whatever. He said destroy everything.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, everything means everything.
Everything is there.
Notice.
Okay. So thanks, Sister Maddox.
What's the point? I mean, what is the shadows? Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions or anything they'd like to add? I probably forgot some stuff. I took copious notes in preparing for this, but
Well,
considering the length of time I took, I think I've left some things out.
when they divided the land, what was the significance of saying that two of the tribes decided not to go with the other? And was that a good decision?
Yeah.
The Lord had promised to give them the best land.
Mhm.
And he wanted them all on a certain side of the mountain. But two of the tribes decided they wanted to be on the other side. So the question is, why was that a good choice on their part?
I don't think it's sure. Why? Honestly, I don't know. I was speculating that, they want the solitude, autonomy. But if God promised them the best, they should do that.
Yeah, it ends up not being good because they can't stand it. easily. And they are away from the rest of the tribe. So when later enemies come in, they are easily taken advantage of, whereas the other tribe can support. Probably a good example, I think. Yeah, to the door. Yeah. Well, sometimes it's a good example that God will let you do what you want to do, even if it's not your benefit. So you can't always assume that just because you've been allowed to do something, that God is blessed.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have that type of mentality that they do things that are wrong. And because there's no immediate punishment, or they don't see punishment, they think it's okay.
Well, they don't know that it's wrong to select that part of the land. You know, God said, I want everybody to get. But sometimes God's will is not absolute. Sometimes His permissive will, we sometimes make choices that seem best for us, but end up being what against the law. And it leads to consequences down the road. I think that's what they found out later. Well, they would have been cramped, all of them together, but they would have been together.
Yes.
And sometimes you know it's better than you couldn't know it, no, so you strike out on our home and then when we get in trouble, when we see you call them, so
Sure,
help me get out of this situation.
that's exactly right. Pride.
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally in this situation. It's interesting that when we do that today, we think that because we experience good time for a little while, God is blessing. Yeah. But ultimately the consequence comes. In this instance, it was detrimental.
Yeah.
To. So we don't lose sight of the fact that there's a reason when God tells you to do something certain. How arrogant can you be to think you know better? AI is how I pronounce it. There are different pronunciation guides that say it's AI, but I mean, we always guess.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I used some app that for pronunciation.
That said it for
Yeah,
you.
you said I.
Yeah.
That's why I said that. I wasn't sure.
And you know, that's the same thing I did, but you know, depending on how. Yeah. So pronunciation guide. So preacher's been butchering that name forever. Teacher, let me say, been butchering it. But the last thing I want to ask is this, brother teacher. In dividing the land, what land did the Levites?
They didn't get it.
Wow.
Set apart from the rest of the tribe. They were supposed to go to eat.
But they older folk have to eat.
Well, after they go ahead.
Yeah. So God had a mechanism to take care of it. If we do.
I don't have a mechanism for taking care of his kids, the folks that try to interfere and run his business, take his social control.
Yeah, that's true. And as we'll see as we move forward, even that mechanism provided for Levites.
Yeah.
So foundation is laid. We're in the promised land now. Everybody's got their piece of the pie. Thank you. Did a good job.
Mhm.
Let's give it up for Alvin.
Yeah.
It was just on time, man.
I appreciate it. And I definitely appreciate the attendance and definitely the input. Like I said, that's why I come to Bible studies to learn. And so I learned something tonight as I was teaching.
They're clapping for you online. See you up there?
Oh.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Got some very nice members here, our church family. So I do appreciate that. So
Thank you for taking the time to put it together. Clearly, hey,
I want to prepare. I want, if you actually do something, I want to try to.
why are you nervous in front of these folks you deal with every Sunday?
Well, I mean, I know them whatnot. It's different when you're trying to teach. It's different when you're conversing with people. When you're actually trying to teach, that's a little different.
So how much more difficult would it be to teach strangers?
Probably, I would say probably not. Right. I suppose I think your point is saying that should be more comfortable.
Well, I'm saying if it's difficult to teach your friends and family, then it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult to teach people who don't know. But everybody in here to a person is rooted for.
I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that.
Not so much with strangers.
I
I have to tell you that.
probably a lot more.
Well, who is this? That's what they would say. But you just put it the same way. That's why Paul says, study to show that you're approved. You did. There you go. Say the rest of it. A work who need not be ashamed of. That's not just a preacher. Now, see, it's always gonna be one. It's out in the bag. But that's true as well. Yeah, don't be loquacious. That means talking.
Yeah, 2 words.
Yeah, like your pastor.
No, I don't consider you.
I know my week. I like the flavor of the stuff. Great job, Alvin. Thank you.
Thank you.
You just took over.
All right, so we're gonna close with prayer. Everyone, let's go to the Lord. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for grace to give it to your. Pray that you allow us to get sick to our whole. Ask that you just continue to bless our church family. Father, thank you for that. We ask that you, as you bless him all the time, you bless Pastor Parker, 19th year anniversary. Love him, we appreciate him, and hopefully throughout this month we can display that to him. And Father, we just also want to keep our members, friends in prayer who are suffering from loss at this time. We want to continue to pray for Sister just in loss of Joseph. I recently received word about Sister Barbara Workston and losing one of her nieces. Father, I want to pray for our sick shed in, pray for Isaiah Williams, who successfully came through a surgery on last Friday, spent 3 days in ICU, but he is now at home recovering. We just ask that you continue to strengthen him, just continue to strengthen everybody that's suffering from recent. So we just ask that you continue to bless them. I've heard of impending bad weather over the next couple of days. So we know that you're in control. We just ask that you bless them. These prayers, in Jesus' name. Thank you, Lord.
Amen.
All right.